Hello everyone! I'm going to start things off a little differently today, but I want to welcome all of you. I'd like to start off talking about something I've noticed about people, especially when they're around someone like Guruji. You always hear the stories that, these people are lying, manipulating, they're fooling others, cheating. It seems like such insanity. It seems so strange that people can behave like this in the presence of eternity, in the presence of this light, this God. And yet the thing that comes out is this contradictory behavior, this behavior that desires a quick relief. Why does this happen? Why do people lie? Why do people manipulate? Why do people hide? Well, in honor of Halloween, I thought today's topic would be very special if we talked a little bit about fear. When we're born, it's just divine, eternity. You're this pure soul. Right? Your essence is God. It is truth. It is love. That's who you are. But as we go through the turmoils of life, through pain and suffering, instead of facing our fears directly, head on, we want to cover it up, hide it for quick relief. Momentary gain instead of lasting peace. Fear is conditioned. It's a conditioned response. When you don't see reality correctly, when you're in a state of delusion, you lack peace and harmony in your life. Instead of facing problems and dealing with it, addressing the darkness, the dark parts of ourselves, we want to cover it up. This is something I see with a lot of people, especially on a spiritual path, is when you're on a spiritual path, there's suddenly this idea or this impression that you're much holier than other people. Right? There's something special about you to be on this path to begin with, and no, there can't be darkness or evil inside of me. No, not me. I'm very spiritual. I'm very special. That doesn't exist in me. And whenever these feelings or this darkness starts to come out a little bit, instead of taking action, using our courage. We just think, no, that can't be. That's not me. And we do whatever we can to try and cover it up and hide. I want to show you a couple of images. They're pictures that you see of the universe, just of the sky. You see all these images, every single dot, blur, pixel. Everything are stars, galaxies, planets, beyond our own. Seems like there's a lot out there, right? Now, if you were to zoom in on one of those patches of darkness between the lights, between the stars and the galaxies, this is what you'll find. Bamit, can you show the next image? More light, more galaxies, more stars. In 1995, this is an image that the Hubble Space Telescope took of just an empty, dark patch of the sky. And it exposed the image for 10 days. So just focused on that one spot in the sky for 10 days. You know, that according to the naked eye, we can't see, right? It just appears darkness, black, empty space to us. But after 10 days of just focusing on that one spot, this is what the image was able to pick up. The universe is far more expansive than we believe it to be, than we can understand. Every single dot and blur in that image is an entire galaxy. We live in a galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. That includes our whole solar system, asteroid belts, planets, stars. We can't even see to the end of our own galaxy. And yet here, every single one of these things is a whole galaxy. They say the universe is over 13 billion years old. And yet we're still receiving light that's coming to us. That's tens of billions of light years away. Now, when you see these images, when you see these galaxies and stars and everything, when you think of matter, what do you think of? You think of matter being like you and me, like something physical, tangible, right? Like stars are matter, trees, right? You have the planet Earth, our solar system, galaxies, right? You have your cat, your boyfriend, right? The food you eat, even the air you breathe, light, energy. Now, energy and matter only composes 5% of the universe that we exist in. 5%. 25% of the universe is what astronomers call dark energy. And 70% of the universe, or no, 25% is dark matter, and 70% of the universe is dark energy. What does it mean when I say it's dark energy and dark matter? Now the thing is, astronomers, they haven't been able to see it, get a sample of it, witness it. But they theorize that it must be there. Because of the way it affects the gravity of our universe. Because with such little amount of physical matter that's in the universe, right, there's no way that these galaxies would be created, that stars and planets would form. It just wouldn't happen. There's not enough matter to make them connect and pull each other in to form a galaxy in a universe. There needs to be more substance out there. And the way that light bends and travels through the universe, we suspect that there is something else out there that we don't know what it is, but we're pretty sure it's there. And the only way we know it exists is that it affects how the universe is formed, how it interacts with gravity. It neither emits nor reflects light. That's why they call it dark. It's a voidness of space that somehow interacts with us at the same time, forms us. And yet exists outside of form that we know. "95% of the universe." So in terms of you, what's your composition? You are that universe. It's impossible to exist outside of it. You are it. You don't have a choice in it. You don't have a say in the matter. But we have this sense of separation from everything around us, this sense of structure that gives us a very rigid definition of who we are. Right? I am a person, I am a woman, my name is Dahryn, I live in Las Vegas, which is inside of the state Nevada, which is, inside of the United States, which is on this continent, which is on this planet, which is in the Milky Way galaxy. Like, every single thing that we've used to describe ourselves and our place in the universe is a structure that our mind has set up in order for us to find a place, to put ourselves somewhere. That's how the mind works. When you're a child, right, you define yourself by what you are and what you're not. Right? I don't live on that part of the world, I live on this part of the world. Right? I'm not a tree, I'm a person. I'm this tall, right? This is what I'm good at, this is what I'm not good at, this is who I am. But we have such a static definition of ourself that when we encounter something that defies that, that we don't understand, that shakes our core, we react with fear. Because what do people fear most? The unknown. Enlightenment. Whether you know it or not, that is everybody's fear. The enlightened didn't make these structures of the world. We created them so we have a place to put ourselves in order to function and interact with the world. But like when you have these religions from these enlightened masters, you have like, Buddha, Jesus the Christ, right? Jesus the Christ didn't follow Christianity. Right? Christianity came after the fact. Buddhism came after the fact. It was a way for the human mind to be able to put a structure on the teachings of something so that they can find a way to integrate it and interact with it better. But their teachings were to have direct experience with truth. It wasn't to read from a book and, learn about things, memorize things. Right? That's part of it, but what happens when you've read every book? When you're an expert theologist, you know all about every religion. You know everything there is to know. I've had conversations with people where, they ask me a question and I give them an answer according to the best that I can. Whether they understand it or not, that's dependent upon them, right? But a lot of times, you're interacting with another person's mind. So I'm giving them some essence of truth that I've discovered for myself, that I can't force upon another to understand. But I can try to convey that truth to them. But what I see a lot of people do is they end up saying, oh yeah, I understand completely. That makes total sense. And the thing is, they understand it from an intellectual point of view. They understand it, because they've heard it from so many people, or they've read about it in so many different books that, yes, God is love, God is perfection, God is truth, God is, ecstasy, but yeah, I know that. When you have the direct experience, there's a difference between knowing it on an intellectual level and knowing it at the level of the spirit, of the soul. As to living in that truth daily, to be absorbed in truth. It's not enough to just think you know it, to understand it, to have an idea about truth, to have a belief as to what truth is, and to think that I've figured it out. I get it. The moment you think you've figured it out and you get it, you haven't. Because it's not something that you understand, it's something that you become. You become absorbed in truth. Truth isn't something that you understand and read about and learn about. It's something that you live. To know God, it's a direct experience with the unknown. And when you have all these different structures that you've created about your life and about the world, what is fear? Fear is when you have a sense of a threat. Your sense of self perceives something as a threat, as something that can cause you pain or harm. That's something that could potentially be dangerous, whether now or at some point in time in the future. That's anxiety, that's worry, stress. It's fear. Why do people hide the truth? Why do people cover things up? Fear. The greatest motivator in the world is fear. When people have health scares, right? If you have someone that's overweight and they really need to lose weight, right? You can give them all the, descriptions of all the benefits, saying, if you lose weight, you'll feel good, you'll look better, your clothes will fit better. You'll just have more energy, right? You can give all these different benefits. As to how that person will feel in the end. But the greatest motivator for a lot of people is when they hear a doctor say, if you don't lose weight, you're going to die. That fear can motivate people to do interesting things. But fear is a very primitive way to look at life. Fear is limiting when it reaches a certain point. Right? For those who are, lower in consciousness, fear is important to tell them what to do and what not to do. Things that, might seem like common sense, people need fear instilled in them to make sure that they don't make stupid choices. Don't run out into the highway, you'll get hit by a car. You don't run out into the highway thinking, I'm going to be okay. It's common sense for most people, but fear is the thing that stops you, that puts a hold on things. It says, don't do that. But when you're on this path towards enlightenment, towards ecstasy, bliss, and perfection beyond your awareness and your knowledge, fear becomes a limitation. Because what happens? Let's say you have this really intense fear of standing up in front of an audience and speaking. Right? Public speaking, a lot of fears are related around social anxiety. Fears of what others will think about them. Maybe people will think that, they're not attractive, or, maybe they'll feel like they're going to mess up or they're going to say something stupid. So if you're so absorbed in fear, right, at the level of the brain and the body, you can't think clearly. It might give you a rush of adrenaline to take action and do something, but that's all it really does, is just gives you a rush. But your mind is so clouded by what you perceive as a threat that you can't deliver your best in any situation. Even if someone comes up and attacks you, if you have that fear, you have a rush of adrenaline that tells you, act, do something, run away, fight back. But when you have a clear and level mind, You know how to fight back. You have the full capacity of your mind to work with. Fear clouds judgment. It clouds your senses. And when you have fear, it builds upon more fear. It's called potentiation. So like if you're watching a scary movie, or if you're watching, something that scares you, let's say a horror movie when there's ghosts or spirits, and then suddenly you hear noise in the house, right? You're already involved and fearful of that, but then something that originally wouldn't cause fear to you suddenly puts you on edge. Right? It just builds and builds upon itself. It's consuming. You hear a little creak in the house, a little footstep somewhere, and then suddenly you're like, it's a ghost. Maybe it is. But ultimately, if that thing wouldn't cause you fear before, it might make you more fearful now. Because that fear is already there to exist and to feed off of. So when people lie and manipulate, right, you can say that they're incompetent and that's why they're covering it up, but what is the ultimate driving force behind that? The need to hide. It's fear. Fear of that darkness within yourself. Fear to see something that you don't want to acknowledge is there. But instead of using your strength and your willpower, your judgment, your mind becomes clouded. And you do whatever you can to escape. For momentary gain. If someone's under great fear, fear of being found out that they're incompetent, fear of, someone misunderstanding them, or fear of being understood, or fear of, disappointment, fear of losing something. What can you lose? There's nothing to lose. Your very essence is immortal consciousness, is eternity. You already exist there. It's like a bubble in an ocean, right? You already exist in that ocean. Whether you remain as a bubble or you decide to pop the bubble. I mean, initially when you see the needle coming at you, it's scary. You're like, what is that? I don't know what's happening. You feel like, your whole world is caving in, everything's being destroyed. The bubble pops, but then what happens? You're just in the ocean. Even better, you become absorbed in the ocean. There's no you left. There's no sense of self. There's no structure. You're free. But you have to face it head on. You can't hide it or ignore it or will it to go away. When I was a child, we went to these day camps. And one of the camps, we would climb onto this, a rock wall. You'd be strapped in a harness and, someone would be holding on the other end, a camp counselor, making sure that you don't fall and plummet and, break an arm or die or something. Small concerns. And, we're surrounded by all these children, some of them are more courageous than others. They're like, oh, I can climb that. And then after you reach that, there's a tightrope that you walk across with like two little ropes that you hold on to. And it's, difficult to balance, and you're like, very high in there. You're looking down. And if you're afraid of heights, then you know what that feeling, that torment does to you, right? It's worse just thinking about it than it is actually just doing it. It causes you more anxiety and fear to just think about the action of going up there and having to face that fear than it actually does facing and acknowledging the fear. And when I was little, I was terrified of heights. And for some reason, I'd always torment myself because I always be like, no, you go next. No, you go next. And I'd walk myself to the end of the line. And the thing is, once you're at the end of the line and you're just waiting, you're just pushing it off. And you get closer and closer to your turn. You see one person go after another. I mean, that fear builds. Terrifies you. It incapacitates you. I was ready not to go. I was going to refuse. I was going to say, no, I'll just watch. I'm not going to go up there. The thing is, everything that you fear, most things that you fear, is something that's worth doing. I knew that if I was going to give in to my fear, I was going to be disempowered, right? The fear had control over me. Just this idea, like nothing wrong was going to happen. There was someone always there holding on to you, but just the idea of falling was terrifying. But I knew if I gave in to that, just admitted defeat or did something just to temporarily relieve myself of that situation, I would feel horrible later, thinking, I could have done that. I could have faced that fear and become more powerful because of it. When you're on this path, that doesn't mean that there is not darkness within you. It means you face that darkness head on. You become absorbed in eternity in the light. And that will give you more power than anything. So at the very end of the line, I noticed that other people were with me at the very end of the line, also kind of freaking out and panicking, thinking, oh God, I'm up next. And what brought me out of my fear was seeing their fear. And thinking they shouldn't have any regrets. It's when I stopped becoming so absorbed in my own torment. I started helping them. I started motivating them, inspiring them, saying, look, if you don't do this, you'll regret it later. Do it. Right? I'll be with you. There's someone there. They're protecting you. You're not going to fall at all. If you want, you can just test it out to begin with. Just start climbing and then just test it. Just let yourself fall to begin with so you know what it's like. So you have the experience, and it's like you break the ice. The fear just goes away. You face it head on. If you fear falling, just fall. Right? You're climbing up the wall, just let go. And feel what it feels like to be in the security of that harness. Knowing that there's someone stronger, more powerful than you, keeping you up, keeping you steady, supporting you. Keeping you from falling. But if you don't try, you'll never know what that's like. When you become absorbed into eternity, you can't have regrets. You can't have desires. I wish I did this, or I wish I didn't do that. It's not about a description of the world, or you're not interacting with your own thoughts anymore. You're completely absorbed. The moment you think, but what if? Or, oh, that person. That thing I didn't do. Right? You're brought back into the world. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Gravity with Sandra Bullock. When she's in outer space and suddenly she becomes untethered from the spacecraft and then she's literally floating into the emptiness of space. I mean, when you have nothing to grasp onto, to hold on to, like your whole structure of where you are in the world and the universe, the structure of who you are, and that starts to fall away, you start to disconnect with that. You don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's the ego rising up. It's giving you fear and telling you to stop. And if you let that happen, you're going to lose the experience of eternity. You have to be willing to delve into the unknown, to lose yourself, to lose everything that you've loved, everything that you hated, everything that you were attracted or averted to, everything. So many people are so attached to this idea that the fact that they're here right now, that they're a very holy spiritual being, and they don't want to acknowledge that, yes, there is something dark inside of them. There is a shadow part to themselves. They're not perfect. There is weakness there. But instead of accepting that, yes, it's there, and that's fine, and then working with it, everybody's just in denial, at arm's length of truth. I want truth, but I don't want to be uncomfortable. I want God, but can't God just come to me? I want to turn on the light in my room, but do I really have to walk through this darkness to flip the switch? What's there to lose? God is perfection, ecstasy, bliss. The very fabric of your existence. That both exists inside of your form and outside of your form. All around you and within you, and beyond you. If you fear raising your hand, and answering a question in class, because you're worried that you might not know the correct answer, how is the teacher going to correct you and give you the right answer? Every little success, every little accomplishment that you make in your life, that you set out to go and do and accomplish, not just try, you're either going to do it or you're not going to do it. And if you decide to do it, you follow it through. That's what willpower's for. It's power. And when you have a teacher like Guruji, I know you have power. Right? You have the strength within you to get up and take action and do something. If there's something that you're not doing, that you want to do, if you made a list of everything that you're afraid of, and made a list of everything that you're not doing, chances are you'll find a reason for the thing that you're not doing. That the cause of that, the reason behind that, is going to be on the other list of your fears. The things you fear are worth doing. When you lose your connection to that source, that presence, when you become incapacitated by fear, you become disempowered in your own life to do the things that you need to do or want to do. Every little success and accomplishment that you make in your life, you gain more and more power from those things. Every little success, every win, sets you up for greater success. When you look at eternity, you can't face it head on because it's something that, like dark matter and dark energy, you don't see it directly. You see its effects. Until you become absorbed completely in that, you don't know what it is. It's unfathomable, it's incomprehensible. You just know it exists because of how it affects the world, because of its impacts. Because how it affects the light and gravity around you. It's like the wind. You can't see the wind, but when you see it rustling and blowing the trees, you know it's there. That's the teacher. It's like Guruji. That's why teachers are so important. Not only do they teach you about truth, but they actually give you experiences of truth. They let you face it head on. If you can't see or focus on the wind, I mean, if you just try to focus on nothingness, your mind would have to go somewhere. If you try to focus on the wind, you can't focus on the wind because you don't see anything to focus on. It's like not there. But if you focus on something else, its effects in the world, if you focus on the trees rustling, if you focus on, how things move and interact with it, right? That's something that you can pay attention to so you can better understand the wind. That's the teacher. The teacher is like the wind rustling the leaves. Like, it shows you something. The teacher is that presence of truth. Your interaction with that teacher gives you a glimpse of God. A lot of people, when they first encounter a teacher, they might feel uncomfortable or wary. A lot of false teachers out there will make you feel comfortable and tell you what you want to hear. And they feel like, I really like this guy. Like, I really resonate with him. Then you have a teacher like Guruji who's giving you a direct confrontation of truth. Who's making you uncomfortable and uneasy. That uneasiness isn't something that he's putting on you. That uneasiness you're feeling within yourself. It's your approach to truth that makes you quiver. Ooh. When you become absorbed in truth, absorbed in God, when your mind is not only just focused on truth and beautiful things, on perfection, but you become absorbed in it, there's no fear. Fear is dissolved. It can't exist. It doesn't exist in that presence. Fear is the opposite of love. They can't coexist. If you lack faith, if you lack truth and trust, it's because of fear. Think about it. When you have complete trust and faith that everything's going to work out perfectly because God is perfection and God does everything perfectly. And you want to take action to change your life, to do something different. When you have complete trust, faith, and love in that, you can't have fear. If I would watch a scary movie with my friends and, they'd be overwhelmed by fear, they wouldn't want to be alone that night, what do you do to get out of that fear? Right, you turn around, you face it head on. A lot of time we would turn off all the lights in the house after watching a scary movie if we're so scared of the darkness, and we just start walking around in the dark. We'd be like, if I'm afraid of it, and I have to sleep alone at night, just have to do it. Or even better than that, think of something funny. When you're laughing, you can't be afraid. Laughter, joy, happiness, love. Those things only exist in the presence of God. And when the presence of God is there, there's no fear. When you're happy and joyful and laughing, Fear doesn't stand a chance. Fear doesn't like to be laughed at. Fear is very serious. It wants to be taken seriously all the time. Right? You watch this scary movie again, and then this time, instead of getting so involved in the scary bits of it, you just start making jokes during the whole movie. Oh, look, his head's spinning around. You just joke about it. The moment it becomes fun and humorous, the fear loses its grasp, its hold on you. This might make sense to you. This might seem like a very simple concept. Fear. But trust me when I say that if there's something that you aren't doing in your life, that you're not taking action, chances are it's because of fear. More likely than not. The greatest motivator to tell you not to do something is when you're totally afraid. When you've read all the books, all the teachings, you've studied truth, you read about it, it's like you've climbed this mountain, right? This mountain of information and knowledge and everything, and then you're at the top. And now what do you do with yourself? Right? There's nowhere else to go but into the universe. And the thing is, you have to let go of that mountain that you've built of knowledge, of concepts and ideas. You have to just let go, and that's scary because you feel like you're going to fall and plummet to your death. So you're like, no, I'll just wait here. Maybe a helicopter will come by and take me back down. It requires a leap of faith, a leap into the unknown. You have to jump. Because the only way you're going to know truth is through direct experience. And if you're not willing to go through the experience, you'll never know truth. Those who want God, those who seek God, truly, dearly, with all their hearts and souls, will find God. You will find her. It's the nature of life. That's how things happen. If things don't work out in the end, it's because it's not the end, because everything works out in the end. When you become less absorbed in your own fears, your own problems, your own worries, your own desires, your own pains and sufferings, you just become absorbed in truth, then all those things literally fall away. They become dissolved. There's nothing to want, nothing to fear, nothing you need. You have everything. There's no lack. There's no way you can lose it. Once you have it, you never lose it. You can lose power. But once you're enlightened, that's it. Enlightenment is just seeing truth, being truth, perceiving things clearly and completely as they really are, instead of how you want them to be or how you fear they might turn out to be. Right? The future hasn't happened yet. The past doesn't exist. It's gone. The only thing that's really happening is this continuous present moment. And yet we're still basing our actions on how things turned out in the past. I did this and it didn't turn out so well. I shouldn't do it again. Not because it's not good for you to do it again, but because you're afraid of how things turned out before. You're afraid of failure. You're afraid of falling down and not being able to get back up again. But you have the power to get back up. You have an army of God behind you saying, get up. Will yourself to do it. Take action and do it. Be truthful and honest. Don't manipulate people for your own temporary gain. The enlightened don't want anything from anyone. All they see is God. Everything that they do is pure. I've seen people complain about Guruji when he talks about sex. Right? These people think that there's something wrong with sex, or there's something wrong with this and wrong with that, and it shouldn't be talked about, shouldn't be discussed at all. They don't want to face it. The thing is, when you do something and you're pure, your totality is pure from within, your spirit is the leader, not your brain and your body. You're operating with truth and love, dignity, peace, purity. Then everything you do is pure. If you have sex, it's pure. If you talk about it, it's pure. If you make money, it's pure. Whatever's within you, right? The thoughts running through your head, these ideas and beliefs about life, they cause you to take certain actions. Right? The thought comes first, then the action next. And it might not be the most sensible action to take. Your judgment is clouded when you have all these fears and anxieties and worries about the future. You're not going to make the right decisions. Or even worse, you're not going to make any decisions at all. I think it's worse to not make a decision at all than to make a wrong decision. Because at least you're trying something new, you're attempting something. And you have the experience of it. To know not to do that again, or to do it differently next time. When you take action and become involved in the world around you, to decide to do things, it gives you a better idea of what's within you. It gives you greater awareness. When you're lazy and lethargic, you're sitting back not doing anything, It's numbing. You numb and close yourself off. When you start doing things, when you start becoming involved in the world in your life, taking action, I mean, a lot of the time you'll encounter more fear because more things are being dissolved, and when the ego feels like they're losing its reality, its sense of self, I mean, it retaliates. But when you go with conviction that I'm going to do it no matter what, this is something I have to do, trust me when I say that fear will dissolve, it will fall away. Because you're supported, you're in that harness. The moment you decide to climb up that mountain, just making that decision and starting doing it, this light, this energy will support you. It'll give you the strength and the courage to do what you need to do. And when you're less focused on yourself, when you start doing things for higher purposes, higher reasons, instead of just your own fulfillment, when you start doing things for others, like when I started telling other people, uplifting them, giving them the motivation to climb that rock mountain, and then when it finally got to my turn, I wasn't afraid. Because I got so much joy from watching them overcome their own pain that I felt uplifted in the process. When you're giving, when you give of yourself, you don't get involved with people, you get involved with the eternal presence within each person. You love that. You serve that. You treat that with respect and dignity. And the personality comes in many different packages. But the truth, the essence is there. I mean, you're just becoming absorbed in eternity. That nature within them is the same nature within yourself. The more you focus on, the more you become that. I focused on strength for their sake, to uplift them, to see that light, that joy shine from them when they climb down from that mountain successful. Enough so that I lost my fear. When you care for others, it's a reverence for life, for the life and truth that you are. It's not about losing something or giving something away to somebody else and you having less than or missing out on something. You're doing it because you enjoy it, because you rejoice in it, because it's your nature, it's God. The fabric of existence interwoven into others is the same fabric of existence interwoven into your own existence. Be absorbed in eternity, in God. Tell the truth. Guruji's always saying, tell me the truth. I might get angry, but that'll pass. The best part is you will face whatever incompetence, whatever weakness, whatever fears that you have within yourself. And you can address it. You can overcome it. You can become empowered. And each empowerment just empowers you further towards enlightenment. Right? There are as many paths to God as there are people. It's not about following a technique or, doing something a specific way. You have to use your awareness to feel out truth. No one's going to tell you how to accomplish God and then you'll just figure it out and you'll know, oh, it's that easy. I didn't know, that's all I had to do was read this book, say this mantra 10 times, and then, 12 Hail Marys, and then I'm saved. I'm free. You have to be in an empowered state. The more empowered you are, the more heightened your awareness is. You need your awareness to be able to sense things. When you're on this path, you become more sensitive. I don't mean more offended. Let's not talk about that. I'm too sensitive. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to address what I'm fearful of. I'm way too sensitive. No. It just means you feel more. You're more aware of your surroundings. You're more aware of how other people affect you. You're more aware of how your actions affect yourself and your life and those around you. You're more aware of the repercussions and the consequences. When you have greater awareness, you don't do things or not do things out of fear. You don't do things or do certain things because it's common sense, because it's the right thing to do. Not because you're scared of doing it or you don't want to do it. You do it because you know, I have to do this. It doesn't take fear to tell you not to run out into the middle of a highway to not get hit by a car. It takes common sense. But most people are still operating on primitive technology of fear, using fear to tell them not to do certain things and to do certain things. Fear is an emotion. It's a construct of the mind. It's a confining reality. And trust me, there's nothing that gives you more of a sense of impending doom than we start going on the path towards enlightenment. Because literally, God destroys your world before your very eyes. And then builds it back up again. And destroys it, builds it back up again. You need to see things through a new world, a new perspective, a new level of awareness. That's the only way you're going to know what things are possible, what there is out there. When you're in the presence of someone who's enlightened, who has that light, that energy, that consciousness, that God coming through them, right? That presence will uplift you to higher states of consciousness, will bring you to different states of mind, different realities, different worlds. Things you didn't know existed. And maybe when you're not in that presence, you'll come back down to a different level of awareness, but at least since you had a glimpse, you know that it exists, and you know that it's possible, and it becomes more available to you because of that. When you go through the experience, when you take action, when you do something to uplift yourself and to uplift others, new worlds of possibility become open and available to you. Right? It's the consciousness scale. If you start off here at the lower end of the spectrum, this is what's available to you. You don't understand what's here because you're not there. It's very difficult to understand. And when you go up the scale, you go through growing pains, discomforts, because what's happening? Your whole reality is changing. Right? You're at this level of the spectrum, and this is the situations, the people that you're attracting or you're attracted to. Right? The way you approach and live life. And as you start uplifting yourself, it might be uncomfortable because these things start to fall away. And what do you feel? You feel the impending doom because you're approaching something unknown. You're on the path towards enlightenment and you get scared. You feel uncomfortable. You get anxiety. You start thinking, what is life? What's happening to me? A lot of times people will be like, I didn't know that I was this terrible of a person. That's funny to me. It's not that that self didn't exist before. It was there. It's not like you got worse. Right? The greatest light casts the most shadows. When you're focusing on the light, the light's reflecting upon you, I mean, all these shadows are all around you. You have to face them. But then once you become completely absorbed in that light, right? It's not a matter of the light casting itself upon you. You become that light. Then there's no shadows, right? They become dissolved. You become perfection itself. There's nothing to worry about. Nothing to be concerned about. But it's a journey. It doesn't just happen like that overnight. If it does, then you must have been working very, very hard in the past. This path is a constant battle with yourself, your old ideas, your old perceptions, your old visions, your old ambitions, everything. It's always a battle with yourself. Because that's what you have to face. The reality that you perceive. Right? Enlightenment is seeing the clear light of reality. It's the clear truth. This is just how life is. It's not a matter of, it's just perfection. Everything is done perfectly. You're not like, this is right, that's wrong. No, that shouldn't happen. Divine created everything. Divine is equally present in the darkness as divine is in the light. When you become absorbed in divine, there's no dark or light. It's just perfect, eternal. Whatever good thing you can think of doesn't even touch it. It's well worth it, whatever you have to go through. Trust me. Whatever value you've placed upon it, times it by infinity. Because there's no value for it. It's beyond value. It's 100% worth it, whatever you have to go through. But you can't hide from it. If you hide, you'll never see it. You'll never understand it. You'll just be caught in this cycle of more lies, more manipulations, more delusions. And a lot of times people actually believe these delusions. It's not like, I know this is the delusion, but I'm choosing to believe in it. Sometimes that is the case, but a majority of the time, they're so absorbed in that reality that they actually believe it. But when you take action, do things you're afraid or uncomfortable of doing. Try something new. If you don't interact with the world, you'll never see what's reflected back to you. You'll never have the awareness to know what's being reflected back to you. It's like you're standing in front of a mirror and you make this ugly face, right? If you don't interact with it, you don't see it, you won't know what ugly face you're making. If you have an ugly approach towards life, or there's this darkness inside of you, the shadow parts of yourself, when you interact with the light on this path towards enlightenment, it'll present itself to you, and you'll know. It's not enough to have hope. You need faith. Complete and utter faith. That no matter how bad it gets, no matter what happens, no matter how many times you fall down, all that matters is that you just keep getting back up. Until you reach the top of the mountain, and then you look back down. Right, you've finished the climb, you're standing at the top. And you're looking down at the guidance counselor holding the harness saying, "Yeah, you did it, good job." When you're able to see clearly from that perspective of reality, from rising above the challenges that you face, you become enveloped and overwhelmed by peace, empowerment, love, ecstasy. I'm telling you, when every single one of those people came down from rock climbing, they weren't shaking in fear. They weren't screaming and crying. They were rejoicing. They were skipping, jumping, dancing, hugging each other, saying, "I did it! I did it!" But you'll never know what that's like if you don't start the climb, if you don't face it, and deal with it. When you're in the presence of a teacher, an enlightened teacher, whatever's within you will be amplified. It's like a magnifying glass, showing every single little part of you and then magnifying it hundredfold so that you can see it more clearly. Right? If you have this anger, this jealousy, or whatever it is inside of you, it'll be a lot more active when you're in that presence. It's rearing its ugly head so you can deal with it. It's divine saying that, here's this. Your nature's purity. If you know that truth, when you see these moments of ugliness, of horror, but you're steadfast in truth, you know that purity exists, you know perfection is out there, you've had a glimpse of it, you've had an experience with it, you know it exists, you know that peace is possible, you know what happiness is like, you've felt happiness before. Even right now, if you're not feeling happiness in this moment, all you feel is terror and horror and you're very upset and you're angry at life. But you know it exists because you felt it at one point in time in your life, hopefully. I'm sure you all have at one point in time. You know it exists. When you've had an experience with truth, if you've had happiness at one point in time in your life, and you go through a spell of depression, if you at least have the awareness that happiness exists, that it is there, you know what it's like because you felt it. Even if you can't feel it right now, you don't know what it's really like in this moment, but you've had the experience. It's been integrated into your totality. It's a part of who you are. You've had the experience. You don't lose it. It's not information that you can forget. When you've had an experience of divine, of God, it becomes a part of you. And you don't forget it. You don't lose it. You can't lose what you are. But when you're going through those spells of depression or anger, anxiety, but you're steadfast in truth, that you know that there's more, that this isn't it, that this is just another moment and the next can be different. That you know perfection is out there, that you know you are part of that perfection, and whatever impurity, whatever darkness you're seeing right now, it can easily be dissolved in the light of who you really are. But you have to embrace life fully to have all these varieties of experiences to know. The teacher gives you teachings, gives you suggestions on what to do in your life, knowing that this will help you. And if you take action and follow through with it, the more you interact with the world, with divine, with eternity, the more you experience truth directly, the more you become truth. Every moment, every interaction with truth that you have, when you do your best to follow the teachings, to deal with things, to take action, to use your willpower to propel yourself and uplift yourself and those around you, instead of getting caught up in a whirlwind of drama that does no benefit to you or to those around you. It's like another layer of ice has melted off that diamond inside of you. You become more sensitive. I mean, you feel more of that. And it's scary because when the ice is melting, I mean, you might not understand it intellectually or on a level that you can describe in words, because it's beyond words. But it's like it's just the lifting of the veil. But you've become so accustomed, so encased in this story of what truth and reality is. I mean, when I first married to Guruji, I knew that it was going to be painful at times, because I had to interact with the story I've built for my life. My own pains, my own sufferings, my own weakness. Guruji had this image, this idea, this is what she needs to be, for her own enlightenment, to be, the wife of Guruji. And I had no experience, no nurturing of that aspect of it per se. And while the first few years were tough, right, lots of ups and downs, lots of moments of turmoil, of pains, anxieties, depression, suffering, because I saw imperfections that I didn't notice before, that I didn't know existed, that I had persuaded myself did not exist. And I kept thinking, this isn't me. But when you face it head on, you accept that reality. I saw these aspects and parts of myself, this darkness. I wasn't going to hide it. I was willing to bare myself completely. It's a very vulnerable feeling because you're letting go of your whole idea, your whole structure of your world. Because there are new things that you didn't address before that are shaking things up, bringing light to new things that you definitely did not believe or hope existed before. It would have been easy enough for me to try and hide it, to lie and manipulate, but I had full faith in this divine presence through Guruji, to know that it was showing me an aspect of my life that I didn't realize before, a new awareness about myself, about this emotional, reactive part of myself that I didn't understand initially. But the more I faced it, the more I admitted and accepted. And the more I took action to uplift myself and to do things knowing that God would support me. That whether I was understood or not from the outer world, from people viewing in on me, I knew that God would see the truth, that with my own efforts, I would become that much closer because of it. It wasn't a desire or a want for me to find God and reach there. It was something I had no other choice to do. I mean, you only have two choices in life. You can either live the life that you're living now, live the life as this mortal, imperfect being, or you can decide to become eternal, immortal places in life. And you can pick whichever choice you want. I didn't just have a desire or motivation, I had volition. I said, no matter what it takes, I'm going to bite the bullet. I'm going to face this down. I'm going to do it. I'm going to bear myself. I'm going to let God show me everything, every particle, every darkness inside of me, and I was going to face it and look at it. And every little step that I took to overcome that, I became more empowered because of it. I became stronger. My fears dissolved. I was so afraid of losing everything, thinking that if I lost this chance here, then God was lost to me. There was no hope, no possibility. I said, no, this is my path. This is what I'm doing. I have no other choice. I'm going to do this. If I fall down, I'm going to get back up again. I'm going to be a better version of myself in this next moment than I was in the past moment. No regrets. No shame. And I knew that so long as I had the purest intentions at heart, and I strived to become more and more perfect, to be absorbed in that eternity. And when my mind and heart was absorbed on that, within that, you become that. It's like when you take a sponge, a dried out sponge, whatever you're going to put it in. If you put it in orange juice, if you put it in water, if you put it in grape juice and wine, alcohol, whatever you put it in, it's going to absorb that. If you focus your whole heart, your whole soul, your whole mind, completely and totally on perfection, on truth, on God, on that reality, you become that. You'll see many different versions of yourself on this path. Some things will delight you, some things not so much. But trust me, have faith when I say it is completely worth it. And you never fall. This light, divine, will always support you no matter what.